Today, we journey into the heart of a catastrophe that reshaped the world. Imagine a time when death arrived not with a knock, but with a whisper, spreading silently, swiftly, and without mercy. This is the story of the Black Death, a plague that swept through Europe in the 14th century, leaving devastation in its wake. In this first chapter, we uncover the origins and nature of this deadly force. From its mysterious beginnings in the East to its relentless march across continents, we'll explore how this invisible enemy infiltrated societies, sowing fear and chaos. What were the signs? How did it spread? And why was it so devastating? Join us as we delve into the dark truth about the Black Death, where it came from, how it spread, and the profound impact it had on the world. The Black Death isn't just a plague. It's a weapon. A silent, unseen architect is behind the disease, its true purpose hidden beneath layers of history. As the world grapples with what's happening, there's a deep, nagging suspicion that it isn't merely nature's cruel hand at work. The story begins in the heart of Europe, where the first whispers start circulating about a strange, almost unnatural pattern in how the disease spreads. It's not just the sudden onset of illness. It's the speed, the intensity, and, most chillingly, the regions it targets. The towns that seem to fall the hardest, the wealthy, powerful families who suffer the most. They're all strangely connected. A small group of individuals, all with their own reasons for seeking the truth, begin to connect these dots. A disgraced former noble, once too proud and blind to see the injustices around him, starts to question the strange outbreaks. His once stifled suspicions are reignited as he begins piecing together a darker story. The plague might not be spreading by nature's will, but by design. In the shadows of the cities, rumors swirl about a secret society, an ancient, hidden order whose members are allegedly preparing for the rise of a new world order. They are everywhere and nowhere. No one knows who they are, but their influence is palpable. They have eyes in every royal court, in every merchant guild, and in every tavern where peasants gather. It is said that, in exchange for their loyalty, they've been promised great rewards once the world has been remade in their image. But no one dares speak their name. Fear is too strong. The first true hint comes in the form of a letter, sent anonymously, that reaches a young scholar in a small university town. It claims that the plague has been unleashed deliberately, not just as a weapon of mass destruction, but to manipulate political structures, reduce the population, and allow a certain group to seize control. The scholar, eager to investigate, begins a quiet study of the records, looking for inconsistencies, hidden truths, anything that could connect the plague's spread to a deliberate hand. What he finds shocks him. There's a pattern, a strategy that no one has noticed before. It becomes clear that this is no random disaster. It's a meticulously planned event. Soon, the scholar finds that he's not alone in his search for answers. Others, disparate figures with their own motives, begin to emerge from the shadows. A merchant, driven by the greed and ambition of someone who has lost everything, realizes that his rise in wealth might just align with the chaos. A former priest, exiled for heresy, senses a divine reckoning in the air and seeks to use the plague as proof of God's anger, an anger he intends to manipulate to his own gain. All of them are searching, each one chasing different truths, but they begin to piece together a horrifying possibility. The plague is not simply a disease. It is a means to an end, a dark tool in the hands of those with unimaginable power. There's a tension in the air, palpable and undeniable. These individuals, drawn together by a common thread of fear and intrigue, are about to uncover a truth that will forever change the way the world looks at the Black Death. But the deeper they dig, the more dangerous it becomes. The plague isn't just an illness. It's the first stage of something much larger, and someone is watching, pulling the strings in the shadows. They've only just begun to see the edges of the web, and already, it feels like it might consume them all. The Black Death is not just a plague. It's the beginning of a profound unraveling. Kingdoms that once stood firm, secure in their power, now teeter on the brink of collapse. It isn't just the death toll that's destroying the world. It's the political instability, the fear, and the scramble for control in a kingdom already on the edge of war. In a grand royal court, the king lies gravely ill, his strength diminishing with each passing day. The nobles who once bowed in loyalty now find themselves scrambling to preserve their own fortunes and titles. Rumors abound. The king's ailment isn't just the plague, but something more sinister. Poison, perhaps, or a curse. The whispers grow louder each day, but no one dares speak the truth aloud. Enter Vincenzo di Morini, a once reputable noble now thrust into the maelstrom of royal betrayal and intrigue. For years, he had been loyal to the crown, content to stand on the sidelines as the political elite waged their quiet wars for power. But with the king on his deathbed, the power structure of the entire realm is in question, and Vincenzo, hungry for power and frustrated by years of being overlooked, begins to make dangerous moves. He sees the Black Death for what it truly is, a crisis to be capitalized on, an opportunity that could change the course of history. With the death of so many, the nobility's influence is waning, and the peasants, long oppressed, are starting to rise, emboldened by the disarray. The nobles' death toll is a sign of their weakness, while the commoners are now ripe for manipulation. Vincenzo's first move is both subtle and ruthless. He begins forming alliances with powerful families who stand to gain the most from a weakened monarchy. But he's not the only one scheming. Isabella of Harrow, a shrewd and ambitious duchess, sees the same opportunity. A widow with a deep understanding of court politics, she is willing to do whatever it takes to see her family rise, even if it means betraying old allies. Together, they begin to weave a web of deceit, positioning themselves as saviors of the kingdom. Isabella uses her considerable charm to sway the court, while Vincenzo works behind the scenes, buying up land and securing alliances with the growing merchant class. But their partnership, as fragile as it seems, is built on mutual need, not trust. The plague's devastation may have united them for now, but their true loyalty lies only in what they stand to gain. Meanwhile, the general populace, already devastated by the plague, begins to see the chaos within the court as just another layer of the corruption that has long kept them in chains. Towns are in open revolt, and rumors of secret plans to control the populace through fear and disease are spreading fast. Peasants who have lost everything are turning into a mob, threatening to tear down what's left of the old order. But what they don't know is that the conspiracy runs deeper than anyone could imagine. Not only are the nobles jockeying for power, but a shadowy figure, who remains hidden behind masks and secrecy, begins to use the plague as a weapon to push his own agenda. His goal? A new kingdom, where power is concentrated in the hands of those who truly understand the art of control. The disease serves as both a smokescreen and a tool to manipulate the minds of the people, breaking them down until they are nothing but pawns in a much larger game. In the midst of all this chaos, a key character, a trusted advisor to the dying king, begins to question his loyalty. The advisor has always been a pragmatist, more focused on keeping the kingdom intact than on the legitimacy of the monarch. But as he watches the political maneuvering, the scheming, and the bloodshed, he starts to feel a growing suspicion. What if the king's death was not just a result of the plague? What if someone wanted this chaos? What if someone was pulling the strings? The advisor starts looking into the financial records, the shipments of supplies, the suspiciously well-timed arrivals of foreign merchants offering plague remedies. The pieces of the puzzle start to fit together, and soon, he realizes that there's more going on than he ever imagined. Someone, somewhere, is orchestrating the downfall of the monarchy, and the Black Death is just the first step. But who can he trust? As the court falls deeper into crisis, the advisor knows that if he acts too soon, he'll be labeled a traitor. If he waits too long, it might be too late. In the shadows of the plague's devastating spread, two men, seemingly unlikely allies, form an uneasy, yet dangerous alliance. Each is driven by their own motives, their own hunger for power, and their own dreams of survival. But it is the world's descent into chaos that has forced them to confront the grim truth. To thrive in these dark times, they must work together. Giorgio della Rocca, a once respected merchant who now finds himself scraping by in a world that no longer values trade, sees the plague as the ultimate business opportunity. His warehouses stand nearly empty, his goods spoiled by the chaos of the plague-ridden cities, and yet, he sees potential in the destruction. There's one commodity that's in high demand now more than ever: information. Rumors, fears, whispers, the market for fear has never been higher. Giorgio has already begun selling exaggerated tales of the plague spread, fueling panic to drive his sales of miracle cures that do little more than waste money. But Giorgio's not just looking to profit from the plague, he's looking to control it. Lord Theodore Wallenborg, a disgraced nobleman once aligned with the royal court, now finds himself ostracized, his title stripped, and his name tarnished by accusations of corruption. Once a man of privilege and ambition, he watched his power crumble as swiftly as the kingdom's defenses against the Black Death. The plague has stripped him of everything he once took for granted, but in it, he sees a second chance. A kingdom in crisis is a kingdom that can be remade, and Theodore knows that there's only one way to rise again: seize the power while the world is still reeling. The first meeting between Giorgio and Theodore takes place in a crumbling, desolate mansion on the outskirts of a dying town. Its windows shuttered, the walls eerily silent except for the occasional crack of a beam breaking. Giorgio, with his sharp, calculating eyes, and Theodore, with his refined yet increasingly desperate air, sit in the dim glow of a candle, discussing an alliance that will change everything. "What's your price?" Theodore asks, voice tinged with both skepticism and curiosity. He's seen many men come and go with promises of power, but none who could offer something substantial in the chaos of the plague. Giorgio leans forward, his face illuminated by the flickering candlelight. "We both know the plague isn't just a disease. It's a tool, a weapon, a force of nature that can be manipulated, bent to the will of those with the right resources. We can control this, but we'll need to work together, Theodore. Your influence, my information. We'll use the fear, the death. It will make us both untouchable. Theodore, whose family's land and legacy have been ravaged by the disease, listens intently. He knows Giorgio is right. The plague has decimated the peasantry, leaving only the powerful and the cunning to survive. He can't afford to fight this alone anymore. If he doesn't align himself with the right people, he'll be swept away with the rest of the old world. What's the plan? Theodore asks, a sharp edge to his voice now, ready to pounce on any opportunity. First, Giorgio says, we use the plague to manipulate the merchants. We gain control of the supplies, the food, the medicine, the stories. We sell them not just as cures but as symbols of hope, while we create more fear. That's the first step. But it doesn't stop there. We need to control the court. When the king dies, and we both know it's inevitable, we'll need to ensure that the throne doesn't fall into the hands of the weak or the unworthy. Theodore nods, understanding immediately. And you think we can manipulate the nobility? Create a power vacuum? Giorgio smiles darkly. Not a power vacuum, Theodore. Power surge. A new order. An order where we are the ones pulling the strings. You take the throne in the midst of all this chaos, and I'll ensure that the people, the merchants, the soldiers, they all look to you. The pact is formed, not through loyalty, but through mutual need. Giorgio and Theodore understand that the Black Death has created a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The world is unraveling, and only those who can adapt quickly will survive. But their alliance is built on a foundation of fragility. Both men are driven by their own desires, their own ambitions. There's no trust between them, only necessity. Giorgio knows that Theodore is a means to an end, and Theodore views Giorgio as a tool to accomplish his goals. Both are fully aware that, at any moment, the other could turn on them. In the coming days, the pair begin to work in tandem. Giorgio uses his vast network of spies, informants, and business contacts to spread lies, exaggerate rumors, and manipulate the populace into further panic. Meanwhile, Theodore begins making strategic moves within the royal court, covertly aligning himself with influential nobles and officials, positioning himself as the protector of the realm's future. But as the plague spreads, so too does the danger. The deeper they delve into this web of manipulation, the more they begin to realize just how fragile their hold on power is. And as the bodies pile up and fear grips the kingdom, neither Giorgio nor Theodore can escape the truth. The Black Death might be a weapon, but it is also a force they can't entirely control. The very thing they think they can use for their advantage could easily turn against them. As the plague's shadow stretches across the land, a new group begins to rise, both revered and feared by the people. They call themselves the Healers of the Light, a clandestine group of scholars, physicians, and religious leaders who claim to have discovered a cure for the plague, an ancient remedy that will rid the world of the disease once and for all. But in this world of fear and confusion, where death comes without warning, how much can the people trust these saviors, especially when some of them are starting to act as though they're more than just healers? The leader of the healers, Father Matthias, a charismatic yet enigmatic man, has quickly captured the public's attention. Tall, with eyes that seem to carry both wisdom and sorrow, Matthias has become a symbol of hope. His sermons, filled with impassioned speeches about divine will and salvation, stir the hearts of the people. But his allure goes beyond the pulpit. His connections run deep, with ties to powerful factions both inside and outside the church. It is whispered that his rise is not just due to his divine calling, but because he knows how to navigate the fragile politics of the day. But Matthias is not the only healer to gain prominence. Dr. Julien de Valois, a brilliant physician who once practiced in Paris, joins the healers, claiming to have discovered a treatment that could slow the disease's spread. She is pragmatic, more grounded in science than faith, yet the people flock to her as they do to Matthias. Her reputation as a scholar and her stunning beauty make her an undeniable presence. But there's something about her cold, calculating demeanor that raises suspicions in the minds of those who follow her. Dr. Julienne is unlike anyone else in this group. She isn't simply trying to save lives. She's trying to control them. As the plague wreaks havoc, Julienne sees the suffering of the people as a resource, one she can use to build her own power. The more desperate the public becomes, the more control she gains. She begins negotiating with the wealthiest families, offering them exclusive access to her treatments, promising a chance at survival for the right price. In private, Dr. Julienne and Father Matthias often clash. Matthias insists that their healing work must remain purely altruistic, focused on the divine will to save humanity. But Julienne sees this as naive. The plague is an opportunity, not just a crisis. It is a time to seize power, to reshape the world in the image of those who understand how to manipulate fear and suffering. They argue fiercely behind closed doors, but each knows the other has a role to play in their mutual rise. The deeper the healers embed themselves in society, the more the lines blur between those truly seeking a cure and those seeking to exploit the disease for their own gain. Some healers are genuine, their motives driven by faith or a true desire to help, but many others begin to see the opportunities the plague presents. As fear spreads, so too does the power of the healers. They're no longer just doctors, they are the arbiters of life and death. They offer the cure, and in doing so, hold the people's fate in their hands. It's not just the common folk who are flocking to them. Nobles, merchants, and even kings begin to seek their counsel. The healers become an essential part of the kingdom's power structure. Their decisions, once limited to treating the sick, now extend into politics, into governance, into the very survival of the realm. It's a dangerous game. Those who receive the healer's help are seen as blessed, protected, while those who do not, who are deemed unworthy, are left to die. In a world where life and death are increasingly arbitrary, the healers now control both. Yet, not everyone is convinced that these healers are as benevolent as they seem. A small group of dissenters, including Marguerite, a former nun turned revolutionary, begins to speak out against them. She claims that the healers aren't curing the sick, they're selectively saving those who will pay the highest price, while letting the poor and powerless die. She believes that Father Matthias and Dr. Julien are building their own empire, manipulating the plague to create a class divide based on survival, one that will tip the balance of power forever in their favor. The conspiracy runs deep. Marguerite uncovers a series of letters, hidden from public view, which reveal that Matthias and Julien have been secretly funneling resources to their own private ventures, using the plague as a guise for building their wealth. The letters show that they're also in contact with other influential figures, nobles, merchants, and even some members of the royal family. The healers are positioning themselves to be not only the cure to the plague but the ultimate power in a world on the verge of collapse. As Marguerite tries to rally the oppressed, the healers begin to react. Matthias's sermons grow more fervent, accusing dissenters of being agents of the devil, while Julienne uses her wealth to silence opposition through bribery, assassination, and manipulation. They know that their influence over the population is tenuous. One misstep, one reveal of their true intentions, could send the kingdom into a violent revolt. But for now, the healers are untouchable. They control the narrative, and in a time of plague, that's all that matters. The kingdom's most powerful citizens, both noble and common, are forced to accept the healers as the last line of defense against the plague. But at what cost? Will the people realize the truth in time to stop them, or will the healers succeed in transforming their temporary position into lasting domination? As the Black Death continues to sweep across the continent, something far more insidious begins to take root. Amidst the devastation, rumors start to spread. Rumors about the plague spread, its origins, and a hidden pattern that no one has yet recognized. It's not just a disease, it's a message. But who or what is sending it? At first, the idea is dismissed as superstition. Theologians call it a test of faith. Scholars debate whether the plague is a divine punishment or simply nature's cruel hand at work. But as the death toll climbs and the patterns become too glaring to ignore, more and more people begin to wonder, is there a hidden purpose behind the chaos? Could the plague be more than a random event? The first whispers of something greater come from Antonetta, a young woman whose family was lost to the plague in the early waves. Desperate for answers, she turns to old texts and ancient scriptures, searching for meaning in the midst of her grief. Her studies lead her to one startling conclusion. The plague spread follows a nearly perfect pattern, one that suggests deliberate intent. It strikes the wealthiest cities first, sweeping through the urban centers of power and privilege. Then, as the disease begins to fade from these places, it moves toward rural areas, targeting the poorest villages. Could this be nature's random choice? Or is there a hidden hand guiding the plague? Antonetta believes it's the latter. Her research leads her to an ancient prophecy, passed down through secret religious texts, foretelling the end of a kingdom, one that would be destroyed not by war or famine, but by a plague, deliberately unleashed to destroy the old order and bring about a new age of power and control. The plague, according to the prophecy, is only the beginning. It is the first phase in a much larger, carefully planned event. She begins to quietly investigate, gathering evidence and speaking to others who have witnessed strange coincidences in the plague's spread. It seems as though it targets not just specific regions but also specific individuals, those who hold power, those whose influence could challenge the new order. The wealthy merchants, the influential clergy, the nobles with vast estates, all seem to be dying in disproportionate numbers. Meanwhile, the poor, the desperate, and the powerless survive in greater numbers than expected. Why? As Antonetta digs deeper, she uncovers disturbing details that further support her theory. Some of the worst-hit regions coincide with the territories of powerful noble families, regions that are ripe for conquest. There are hints of mysterious shipments, medicine, food, and weapons, arriving at the same time as the plague's initial outbreak. These supplies, Antonetta learns, are being distributed under the guise of charity, but they seem to serve another purpose: to manipulate the spread of the disease, guiding it toward those areas where the ruling class is most vulnerable. Antonetta is not alone in her search for answers. Father Matthias, once a staunch believer in the divine nature of the plague, begins to question his own faith. The rise of the healers, his own growing influence, and the strange coincidences surrounding the plague have started to unsettle him. Matthias has always seen the plague as God's will, but now he wonders if it's something else, something more sinister. Is the plague truly divine, or is it part of a grand design, one that even he cannot control? Desperate for answers, Matthias meets with Dr. Julienne de Valois, who has become an increasingly influential figure in the court. She, too, has noticed the odd patterns, and though her pragmatic mind doesn't fully embrace Antonetta's theory of prophecy, she is intrigued by the idea of the plague being controlled by some external force. She agrees to join Matthias in his search for the truth. Together, they begin to investigate the strange occurrences that seem to accompany the plague's spread. Their inquiries lead them into the darkest corners of the kingdom, where they meet shadowy figures, merchants, spies, and nobles, all of whom are deeply entrenched in the politics of the court. And, slowly, a terrifying realization begins to take shape. There is someone or something intentionally guiding the plague's path. A secret society, hidden in plain sight, is manipulating the plague. The group's members are not just power-hungry opportunists. They are orchestrating the death toll, choosing who will live and who will die, carefully eliminating those who could pose a threat to their ambitions. Their true goal is not just to ride out the plague, but to use it as a stepping stone to create a new world order, one in which they alone will reign supreme. Antonetta, Matthias, and Julienne begin to uncover clues that lead them to the core of this hidden society. They find encrypted messages hidden in royal decrees, strange patterns in the allocation of resources, and coded symbols in religious texts. It becomes clear that the plague was never just an accident. It was designed to destabilize the kingdom, to eliminate its leaders, and to pave the way for a new world to emerge, one controlled by this secret society, whose members have been carefully chosen to rise in the ashes of the old. The trio realizes that their lives are in grave danger. The more they uncover, the more they draw the attention of those who are behind this dark conspiracy. The society is vast, its influence stretching into every corner of the kingdom. They've been watching Matthias, Julienne, and Antonetta from the shadows, waiting for them to get too close to the truth. The message of the plague is becoming clearer, but so is the danger. The trio must decide whether to reveal the truth to the world and risk everything, or to keep the secret hidden, knowing that the power behind the plague may already be too strong to stop. In the wake of the plague's relentless march across the land, the world is filled with the grief-stricken cries of those who have lost loved ones, and the silent terror of those who live in constant fear of the disease's next victim. Yet, in the midst of this catastrophe, one individual holds a secret that could unravel everything, the kind of secret that could change the course of history. Luca Veri, a young man who was among the few fortunate enough to survive the plague, is tormented by both his survival and the guilt that follows. His family, once wealthy landowners, fell victim to the disease in the first wave. His mother, his sister, and his father, all gone. The devastation has left him alone in a world that no longer makes sense. He's lost everything. He's a survivor in a world where survival has become a curse. But Luca's survival isn't just a matter of luck. There's something more, something that's been gnawing at him since the day he woke up to find his family dead around him. He had been sick, very sick. He had fallen into a feverish stupor, just like so many others, only to wake days later with the disease miraculously gone. But unlike the others, he hadn't just recovered. He had changed. Luca's body is no longer the same. The plague's grip on him, its sickness and fever, had passed. But something darker, something deeper, remains. His senses are sharper, his mind more acute. The once fragile young man is now stronger, more resilient, and his connection to the world around him feels different. It's as though he can sense the pulse of the land, the whispers of the dead, and even the hidden motives of those he comes into contact with. As he grapples with this new reality, Luca starts noticing strange occurrences. His dreams are plagued by visions of the plague's origins, visions of a shadowy figure, cloaked in darkness, watching from the fringes of the world. It feels as though he is being watched, as though the plague was not just a random disaster, but something that he had been marked for. He begins to suspect that his survival wasn't just an accident. There is something about him, something linked to the plague that goes beyond chance. Compelled by these unsettling thoughts, Luca embarks on a solitary journey to uncover the truth. He begins to search for answers in the ruins of his family's estate, now overrun by the dead and dying. Amidst the remnants of his old life, he stumbles upon an old family journal hidden in the cellar. His father's journal, one he had never seen before. The journal's pages are filled with cryptic notes, strange drawings, and, most shockingly, a description of an ancient ritual. His father had been part of a secret order, one that believed the plague was not merely a disease, but a means to unlock hidden powers within certain individuals, those with the right bloodlines, those chosen by fate. Luca's heart races as he reads the journal. It becomes clear that his father had known the truth all along. The Black Death wasn't simply a force of nature. It was a tool, a catalyst for something much darker. His father had been part of a faction that sought to harness the power of the plague, to select certain individuals for a ritual that would grant them unimaginable strength and insight, transforming them into agents of a new world. His father had been trying to stop it. The realization hits Luca like a thunderclap. He is the product of that very ritual. He was chosen before he even understood what it meant. His survival, his transformation, these weren't just the result of luck or chance. They were planned. Someone, some powerful force, had engineered the plague to target people like him. He was meant to survive, to carry out some greater purpose. But what that purpose is, Luca doesn't yet know. He is haunted by visions, by the faces of the dead, by whispers in the wind, by the ever-present feeling that something is watching him, waiting for him to make the next move. As he begins to understand the scope of what has happened to him, he realizes that he is not alone. There are others like him, others who survived the plague, whose bodies and minds have been altered by its touch. They are scattered, hidden in the fringes of society, waiting for the moment to rise. But Luca knows that revealing this secret is dangerous. There are powerful figures in the world, figures connected to the secret society that has manipulated the plague, who would do anything to control him, to use him as a tool in their own rise to power. If they discover that he is one of their chosen, they will stop at nothing to capture him, to bend him to their will. They will use him as a weapon, a puppet in their war for dominance. With every passing day, Luca feels the weight of his destiny pressing down on him. He must keep his secret, his survival, his transformation, hidden at all costs. He begins to distance himself from others, afraid that anyone who gets too close to him will become a target of those who seek to control him. But the truth is inescapable. Luca is at the center of something much larger than himself. The Black Death wasn't just a plague. It was the beginning of a new age, one that will see those who survived rise to unimaginable power. But in the shadows, others like Luca are awakening, and the battle for control over these powerful survivors has already begun. Luca must decide. Will he embrace his newfound power and fight back, or will he hide from his destiny, knowing that to do so may condemn the world to a future darker than even the plague itself? As Luca struggles with the weight of his survival and the shocking truth about the plague, the forces behind the disease begin to move ever more decisively. A hidden hand controls the kingdom's fate, manipulating events from the shadows, and one individual stands at the center of it all, the Masked One, a figure known only by their mask, their true identity concealed by layers of secrecy. But their influence is felt everywhere. No one knows who they are, but everyone knows their power is absolute. In the dark corners of the kingdom, whispers abound. There are rumors of a man, or perhaps a woman, who has been orchestrating the entire plague, not just as a means to bring down the monarchy, but to create a world where this masked figure holds dominion over all. This person is no mere opportunist. They are a master strategist, playing a game that no one even realizes is being played. Luca, still grappling with the truth of his existence, becomes increasingly aware of the figures who are watching him. Figures whose eyes seem to follow his every move. It's as if the Masked One already knows about him and is orchestrating events to pull him deeper into their web. The sense of being watched, of being part of something larger than himself, grows ever more oppressive. Meanwhile, Isabella of Harrow, who has been quietly consolidating power in the royal court, begins to feel the weight of a new threat, an unseen force pulling the strings behind the chaos. She suspects that the Masked One is the true power behind the throne, using the plague to manipulate and control the court's politics. Her sharp mind sees through the illusions of the royals, and she realizes that there's someone out there, someone very powerful, who has been playing everyone like pawns in a game that spans far beyond the kingdom's borders. Isabella knows that in order to maintain her grip on power, she must find out who this masked figure is, and why they have such control. As her spies report back with nothing more than vague rumors, she begins to take matters into her own hands. She sets up secret meetings with former allies and enemies alike, speaking in riddles and shadows, trying to find any piece of information that could reveal the Masked One's identity. She senses that this person is not only orchestrating the plague but may be a key figure in the larger conspiracy to reshape the world. Father Matthias, too, begins to suspect that there is a darker force at work than he ever imagined. His faith has been shaken by his own investigations, and as he delves deeper into the mysterious patterns surrounding the plague, he starts to see connections that lead him back to the Masked One. He begins to notice the subtle signs, certain allies, certain events that seem to be too perfectly timed. There's a hand in everything, guiding the kingdom toward its destruction, and Matthias knows it's not divine. This isn't a punishment, it's a carefully constructed plan. The Masked One operates with ruthless precision. Their influence reaches into the highest levels of the church, the royal court, and the underground world of spies and mercenaries. They've worked to create divisions, mistrust, and fear at every level of society, pitting individuals against each other, making it easier to control the kingdom from the shadows. Every major event, every shift in power seems to play directly into their hands. They are always 2 steps ahead, manipulating the game as if it were nothing more than a chessboard. Yet, the Masked One is no mere puppet master. They are not content with mere control. They seek something greater. They believe that the Black Death is merely the beginning of a new world order. The kingdom, its rulers, its people, all of it is expendable. What they desire is total power, not just over the kingdom, but over all of Europe. The plague is a test run, a way to destabilize the old systems, to weaken the monarchy, the church, and the nobility, so that the Masked One can rise unchallenged. They will reshape the world in their image, creating a future ruled by fear, control, and manipulation. But no one knows their true identity. No one knows where they came from or what they want beyond power. Their mask is not just a symbol of anonymity, it's a tool. It hides their face, their age, their gender, even their voice. The Masked One is a blank slate, a ghost, a specter of power that no one can fight against because no one can fully comprehend who they are. Isabella, Matthias, and Luca all begin to realize that they are being drawn into a game where the rules are constantly changing. The more they uncover, the more they find that the Masked One is always 1 step ahead. They begin to question who can be trusted, who might be secretly working for this unseen force. Luca is torn. Does his connection to the plague make him a target of the Masked One, or is he somehow a part of their plan? Matthias, still haunted by his growing doubts about the divine, starts to wonder if this mysterious figure is a force of evil, one that has been manipulating fate itself. In a fateful encounter, Luca, Matthias, and Isabella finally converge in a secret meeting, each driven by their own motives to learn the truth. They share what they know, piecing together the puzzle, but it's clear. No one has the whole picture. They are being hunted, not by the plague, but by something much more dangerous, the Masked One, whose grip on the kingdom is tightening with every passing day. But before they can act on their newfound alliance, something unexpected happens. A message arrives, cryptic and chilling. The game is over. The end has already begun. It's signed with a single cryptic symbol, the mask. The Masked One has seen them coming. The pieces of the puzzle are in place, and they are about to play their final hand. As the kingdom teeters on the brink of collapse, the royal court becomes a battlefield of lies, power struggles, and dangerous alliances. Beneath the surface of decorum and ceremony, a deadly game of chess is unfolding, one in which the stakes are higher than ever, and no one can be trusted. Lord Oswin, the trusted advisor to the dying king, has always been a figure of loyalty and discretion, or so it seemed. Known for his sharp mind and calm demeanor, he was a fixture in the royal court, a man who could be counted on to guide the king through even the most turbulent times. But as the king's health deteriorates under the weight of the plague, Lord Oswin begins to question everything he once believed. The kingdom is crumbling, the monarch's power is all but gone, and the heir, Prince Aemon, is a weak and indecisive young man with little political savvy. The court, once a symbol of unity and strength, is now a den of schemers, each vying for influence and control. In the midst of the chaos, Lord Oswin finds himself at a crossroads. His loyalty to the monarchy has been tested by the increasing corruption and infighting that plague the royal court. But what truly unsettles him is the growing influence of the Masked One, a shadowy figure who seems to have control over everyone and everything. Whispers of the Masked One's manipulation of the plague, of their ability to shift the kingdom's fate with a single gesture, reach Oswin's ears, and he begins to wonder if the kingdom was ever meant to survive. With the throne up for grabs, Oswin realizes that the Masked One is not just pulling strings from the shadows. They are now directing the course of the royal succession. Fearing for his future and his survival, Oswin begins to entertain dangerous thoughts. What if he could seize power for himself? What if he could secure the throne for Prince Aemon by eliminating the opposition and aligning himself with the Masked One? What if the only way to save the kingdom was to betray everything he once held dear? Oswin's decision is made, but the path to power is a treacherous one. His first move is subtle. He begins feeding information to the Masked One's agents, revealing the weaknesses of the other nobles vying for power. He sows discord among the remaining royal family members, subtly undermining their support base while pretending to be loyal to the throne. Every gesture is calculated, every word carefully chosen, as Oswin plays both sides, manipulating those around him to position himself as the indispensable advisor in a fractured court. At the same time, Isabella of Harrow, no stranger to political maneuvering, begins to sense a shift in the court. She is no fool. She knows that Oswin's loyalty is no longer to the monarchy but to his own ambition. Isabella, who has long had her eyes on the throne, sees in Oswin a potential ally or a deadly rival. She knows that she must act quickly to either win him over or eliminate him as a threat. But Oswin is already a step ahead. In a bold move, he arranges a secret meeting with Isabella, offering her a deal she cannot refuse. The masked one is the future, Oswin says, his voice low and filled with dark promise. If we align ourselves with them, we can shape the future of this kingdom. You will have the power you crave. I can deliver Aemon to the throne, and you will have the title you seek. Together, we will reshape this kingdom, not as rulers of a crumbling empire, but as the architects of the new world. Isabella is intrigued, but she is no fool. She knows Oswin's game all too well. And what will you gain from this? Power behind the throne, like a shadow? She asks, her eyes narrowing. Oswin smiles, a dangerous glint in his eyes. Not just power behind the throne. I will sit on the throne, Isabella. We will rebuild this kingdom on our terms. But Isabella is far from trusting, and she quickly begins to question whether Oswin is truly playing her or if he is simply a pawn in the masked one's grand scheme. She can feel the walls closing in as her rivals grow stronger, and Oswin's offer, though tempting, feels like a trap. She knows that to survive in the court, she must either dominate it or be destroyed. As the deadly dance of politics plays out, the tension between Oswin and Isabella rises, and neither is willing to back down. Both are schemers, but only one can emerge victorious. Meanwhile, Luca, still unaware of the true scope of the conspiracy, is caught in the aftermath of Oswin's machinations. His survival is a constant threat to those in power, and the court's growing suspicion about his role in the plague only serves to increase the danger around him. Luca becomes a pawn in a larger game, one he doesn't fully understand, and he's forced to navigate the treacherous waters of court politics with no allies to trust. But as the various factions close in, each vying for control, one thing becomes clear. Oswin's betrayal is just the beginning. The masked one's influence over the court has reached a breaking point, and the true power behind the throne will soon reveal itself. Whether Luca, Isabella, or Oswin will be the ones left standing after the bloodshed remains to be seen. But in the court of the dying king, only the most ruthless will survive. The plague's devastation has left the kingdom in ruins. The once bustling cities are now ghost towns, their streets filled only with the dead, the dying, and the desperate survivors. The death toll is staggering, but for some, this horror has become a cold currency, an opportunity to claim what remains of the world, to secure power over what's left. In the wake of the plague's destruction, Lord Vincenzo di Morini and Giorgio della Rocca, the ambitious merchant and the disgraced nobleman, find themselves in a unique position of power. The chaos has left a void, and they've positioned themselves at its center, ready to seize control of what little remains of the kingdom's resources. Vincenzo, ever the opportunist, understands that the plague is not just a means of culling the population, but a tool to eliminate those who would stand in his way. The once wealthy landowners and nobles who are now dead or incapacitated have left behind vast estates, ripe for the taking. And as food, medicine, and other resources become scarcer, it is the powerful who will control the supply and demand. And Vincenzo intends to be the one holding the keys to the kingdom's survival. But the price of power is steep. As the survivors scramble for their lives, a dangerous and growing resentment simmers beneath the surface. The common folk, those who have lost everything, are beginning to rise in defiance. With nothing left to lose, they are becoming a mob, bent on reclaiming what has been taken from them. The true cost of the plague is not just in the bodies it has claimed, but in the simmering class divide that now threatens to explode into a bloody revolt. Meanwhile, Giorgio della Rocca, ever the sly businessman, sees the opportunity for profit in this misery. He has built an empire not just on trade, but on fear. The markets for medical supplies, cures, and even charlatan potions are booming. He capitalizes on the panic, charging exorbitant prices for useless remedies and claiming to be the only one with access to the true antidote to the plague. But it's not just wealth he seeks, it's control. Giorgio knows that whoever controls the flow of information, whoever controls the truth, holds the power. But in the midst of their plans, both Vincenzo and Giorgio begin to realize that the rising tide of rebellion cannot be ignored. The unrest is spreading, and the peasants are beginning to organize under a leader, someone they call the Flame of Hope. This mysterious figure has emerged from the shadows, rallying the survivors and feeding the growing sentiment that the rich and powerful are responsible for the suffering. The Flame's speeches stir the hearts of the downtrodden, and more people rally to their cause. Giorgio and Vincenzo are no fools. They know that the flames of revolt could threaten everything they've worked for. But they also see an opportunity in the growing unrest. With a well-placed alliance, they could co-opt this uprising, turn it to their advantage, and use it to further their own ambitions. However, not all who survive the plague are as easily manipulated. Marguerite, a former nun who has become a voice for the oppressed, sees through the schemes of the powerful men who would use the rebellion for their own gain. She knows that the true cost of the plague is not just the loss of life, but the corruption and greed that has followed in its wake. She has witnessed firsthand the cruelty of the wealthy, who hoard supplies while the poor starve and die. And she's determined to lead a revolution that is not merely about revenge, but about justice, about reshaping a broken world. As tensions rise, Marguerite and the flame of hope begin to unite the scattered pockets of resistance, organizing them into a force that could challenge the very heart of the kingdom's power. The leaders of the rebellion know that time is running out. The longer they wait, the stronger the alliances between the ruling class will become. They must act swiftly or risk being crushed under the weight of the newly formed oligarchy that is emerging. But the question remains, can the rebellion overcome the brutal reality of the situation? The elites are powerful, ruthless, and have been manipulating events from the very beginning. The masked one, pulling the strings from the shadows, continues to shape the kingdom's fate with chilling precision. The rising tide of rebellion might be enough to disrupt the balance of power, but it could also be the perfect storm for chaos, one in which the rebels are torn apart by internal divisions, crushed by the same forces they seek to overthrow. In the streets, the rebellion's sparks are growing into a raging fire, while the wealthy and powerful grow desperate, resorting to ever more extreme measures to protect their newfound dominance. The true cost of the plague is no longer just the disease itself, but the souls it has poisoned, the lives it has destroyed, and the power it has shifted into the hands of those most willing to exploit it. As the death toll rises higher and higher, one thing becomes clear. The plague has changed the kingdom forever. Those who survive will have to decide what kind of world they want to live in. But the choices ahead are fraught with peril, and not everyone will be able to afford the price of survival. The kingdom stands on the brink of total collapse. The plague has ravaged the land, the death toll mounting with each passing day. But what follows is far worse than the disease itself. It is the war that erupts in the ashes of a broken world. A war for control, for power, and for the future of humanity itself. The pieces have been set into motion, and the players on both sides are ready to make their final moves. Luca Veri, now fully aware of his role in the unfolding chaos, stands at the center of the storm. His powers, awakened by the plague, have given him more than just the ability to survive. They have given him insight into the hidden workings of the world. He can feel the pulse of the land, the secrets of those around him, and the whispers of the masked one, whose influence continues to tighten its grip on the kingdom. Luca knows that the masked one is no mere puppet master. They are the true architect of this new world, manipulating the chaos to reshape the future. But Luca is no longer the helpless survivor. He is a weapon, and he's made a choice. He will no longer be a pawn in this deadly game. As the rebellion swells and the kingdom's future hangs in the balance, Luca knows that the only way to end the cycle of destruction is to confront the masked one directly. But to do that, he must first gather the strength to take on those who are aligned with the forces of control, the power-hungry merchants, the ruthless nobles, and the hidden agents of the masked one. Isabella of Harrow, ever ambitious, has positioned herself as the only true leader of the kingdom's future. Her alliance with the masked one has granted her power and influence beyond measure, but even she can feel the shifting tides. The rebellion is growing stronger, and the people are beginning to turn against the elites. Isabella knows that the masked one has used her to get closer to the throne, but she is no fool. She knows that when the time comes, the masked one will not hesitate to discard her as easily as they've used her. The kingdom may fall into ruin, but if she can take control now, she can carve out a new future for herself. Father Matthias, torn by his growing disillusionment with the divine, begins to see the deeper truth that no one else dares to acknowledge. The masked one is not simply orchestrating the kingdom's destruction for power. They are an agent of something darker, a force that transcends the kingdom itself. They believe they are not just creating a new world, they are ushering in a new age of power, where the rules of life and death are no longer bound by mortal hands. The final confrontation begins as the flames of rebellion reach the royal city. The forces of the masked one, now entrenched in every level of power, scramble to defend their fragile rule, while those who have risen in defiance of the plague's ravages prepare to tear it all down. The last battle for the kingdom is not fought on the battlefield, but in the halls of power, where the fate of the world will be determined by the final, deadly decisions of its leaders. In the heart of the city, Luca, now fully embracing his role in the coming conflict, gathers a small group of loyal followers, the survivors who have been awakened to the true nature of the world. Together, they infiltrate the heart of the masked one's operations. But as they draw closer to their goal, the truth of their mission becomes even more horrifying. The masked one has not just manipulated the plague to reshape the kingdom, they have been planning to use the survivors of the disease as vessels for their own ascension. Luca realizes that he, and those like him, were never meant to be the saviors of this world. They were chosen to be sacrifices, to fuel the rise of a being beyond mortal comprehension. The masked one, far from being a human ruler, is something far older, something that has existed in the shadows for centuries, waiting for the perfect moment to return. The plague, the deaths, the suffering, They were all part of a ritual to awaken a power that would dominate not just the kingdom, but the entire world. As Luca confronts the masked one in the depths of their hidden lair, he comes face to face with the true nature of the enemy. The masked one is not one person, but many, a collective consciousness that has been waiting for the moment to seize control. They are beings from an ancient order, a cabal that has orchestrated history from the shadows, and now they are ready to fulfill their long-awaited plan. But Luca, in his awakening, understands something crucial. They are not invincible. Their power is born from fear, from suffering, and that is something he can fight. In a moment of truth, Luca makes the ultimate sacrifice. He channels the very power of the plague itself, using the energies that have both transformed and cursed him, to break the masked one's hold over the kingdom. It is a desperate, painful act, but it is the only way to sever their influence once and for all. As the masked one crumbles, their power fading with each passing moment, Luca's transformation begins to reverse. He is no longer a pawn in a game he never chose to play. He is free, but the cost is high. As the rebellion triumphs, as the last of the elite powers fall, the kingdom is left in ruin. The survivors, those who have fought for this new world, now face the grim task of rebuilding. The power structures have shifted, and the old world is gone. There is no clear path forward, no guarantee that the new world will be better than the old. But one thing is certain. The survivors, marked by the plague, are now the ones who will shape the future. Luca, standing amidst the wreckage of the kingdom, understands that the true war isn't over. It's just begun. The battle for the soul of humanity, its power, its future, its place in a world scarred by the plague, will continue. But for the first time, there is hope that the future will belong to those who survive the death toll, not those who caused it.